In music halls and museums across the country, appreciation of the arts is enjoying a renaissance. The opening of a Van Gogh exhibit, for instance, produces crowds customarily seen at rock concerts or sporting events. So what is it about music and art that causes such excitement? How do certain oral or visual stimuli induce such emotional responses? We seem suspended, transported, connected, expanded. Why does one piece bring ecstasy and another agony? And do music and art reflect our culture or create it? Next, on Closer to Truth, why are music and art so exhilarating? Welcome to Closer to Truth. I'm Robert Kuhn. From earliest times in virtually every culture on earth, music and art have marked the high points of civilization. For this edition of Closer to Truth, we've invited 5 very different artists to speculate about how music and art release the human spirit and bring such elation. Dr. Robert Freeman is a leading music educator, historian, and pianist. Professor Todd Boyd teaches critical studies in the School of Cinema Television at the University of Southern California. Ray Kurzweil is the inventor of the computer music keyboard and author of The Age of Spiritual Machines. Dr. Rhoda Jansen has won numerous prizes in poetry and was Poet Laureate of California. And Dr. Todd Seiler is an artist whose science-based works are held in numerous museums and collections worldwide. Bob, you became director of the Eastman School of Music at the incredibly young age of 37 as a tenured professor of music from MIT. You've literally traveled the world of music. What examples have you seen of music's ability to powerfully affect human emotion?
There is, of course, concert music, which I've dedicated my life to, but I'm going to tell you a story that doesn't have to do with concert music. Something which I heard at the dedication of an organ in the Catholic Church by Bishop Matthew Clark of Rochester, who spoke about the recent death of his late mother. He had 3 brothers, 2 of whom were priests, and 4 sisters. They gathered around the bedside of their 89-year-old mother, who was in great pain and was dying of some kind of cancer. They had given her the last rites of the church, and they all prayed, and their mother would not die. She remained in great pain, and it concerned them. The more they prayed, the more nothing seemed to happen. And finally, the oldest sister said, "Let's sing, gathering hands around our mother's bedside, some of the songs that she taught us when we were children." They began with "You Are My Sunshine," and said the bishop, by the end of the first verse, their mother had her breathing become much more regular and relaxed, and by the end of the second verse, she had died. You have these 3 priests and their relatives looking at the heavens going, this is a very, very powerful force. Said the bishop, don't misuse music.
Todd Boyd, we have 2 Todds today, and we're very honored, by the way, to have 2 Todds. How do you think music and art works to create a common culture in America?
Well, I think if you look, closely over the 20th century, you will find commonalities in music and other forms of culture that you may not find in other areas of life, particularly socially or politically. A recent example, of course, would be rap music and hip-hop culture, which I think, interestingly enough, is one of the few places in our society where you can truly see a broad cross-section of the people who make up the fabric of America. And if you take it beyond America's shores and look globally, you will also find that this musical phenomena has saturated the world. You start from something as small as a song or an album, and you move from that to be able to connect people throughout the world, I think is a very strong testament to what music and culture at large can do in terms of creating a community at a higher level.
Good. We want to get back to that because it's very important. Ray, Will a computer ever be able to create original works of music and art that will be moving to human beings, just like a computer recently beat the world chess champion? Do you see computers moving in an artistic direction?
Really, computers today are amplifying our human intelligence, providing new canvases, new tools. But computers, or I prefer to say non-biological forms of intelligence, are going to become more and more powerful. We're going to basically be able to replicate human intelligence by scanning it, understanding it, reinstantiating it in new mediums. And we will meet entities in the 21st century that are very human, that it can express and respond appropriately to human emotion, which is really the ultimate expression of our intelligence. And art and culture and music is a sort of ultimate expression of our human emotion. And I'd say within 30 years or so, non-biological entities will have their own reputation, will be creating art and music and other forms of expression, such as virtual reality environments.
I hope they don't replace Rhoda too quickly. Rhoda, you're a well-known poet who specializes in the nature of aesthetics. What is it about music and art that moves us so deeply, that gets inside of us and twists our stomach?
Well, I think for every respondent, it's different. I'm going to answer personally. I like listening to music and viewing art and reading poetry so much because it gives me something that I don't get in the course of my regular life. My regular life is all about responding to analytical forms, using my mind, consciously engaging on an intellectual level. But when I'm listening to music or reading poetry, I am invited to respond at a visceral level with my whole body. And it creates a space for me that is completely unlike anything I experience elsewhere. It gives me an opportunity, for example, to step away from didactic messages that we're surrounded with. You know, we're bombarded with messages about morality, civility, culture, race, and so forth. And we're asked to think about those and to process those things. That's important. But poetry and music and art, they give us more. They give us this invitation to respond sensually and viscerally.
Todd Seiler, you are an important artist whose starkly original works are in private and public collections worldwide, including many major museums. What do you feel when you create? Do your emotions depend upon the medium? You use different mediums or subjects? If you use words or images? Do you have different emotions?
All of the above. When I get involved in the installations and things I build that involve painting and drawing and video and every kind of medium imaginable, I don't really draw any boundaries between them. It's a complete immersion in that. And I like to break down the distinction between the object observed and the observer and literally have somebody become part of that. In fact, I may finish the work, but it remains unfinished. It's completed by the constant interpretations and revisits that people have when they come to it from all different disciplines and backgrounds and experiences and look at it and say, since my work is really trying to represent the nature of the thought process as I've studied it, experienced it, looked at it, not trying to paint thoughts, but trying to paint the process itself as a way of discovering what this is to share. I love when people begin to map their world and experience into it. That's what completes it, that interaction between it.
Does that ever change your work?
Very much so, all the time. And I discover more and more things about it when children will approach it, when people who are colleagues who approach it from a very kind of a scholarly perspective. And I welcome every kind of approach and experience around it. But it is a complete, it's a way of journeying into the greatest mystery that we have and using all the different languages and ways of making that journey and not worrying whether it's going to be interpreted as I see it, but rather welcoming all the range of other kinds of interpretations.
Bob, you are a first-class musician as well as being a world-class administrator. When you perform, what does it feel like? And when you perform different composers, are your emotions different?
Certainly, but I think a successful performance depends upon a variety of different kinds of aspects. The first has to do with preparation.